Now we're diving into a massive story that's been making waves across the Middle East and beyond. On April 26, 2025, a catastrophic explosion rocked Iran's Shahid Rajaee port in Bandar Abbas, sending shockwaves, literally and figuratively, through the region. This wasn't just any incident. It's one of the most significant industrial disasters in Iran's recent history, and it's raising some big questions. Was this a tragic accident or something more sinister, like sabotage? Let's break it all down. Picture this. It's midday in Bandar Abbas, Iran's busiest container port. Suddenly, a massive blast tears through the port area. Thick black smoke billows into the sky, visible for miles. Windows shatter kilometers away, buildings collapse, and chaos erupts. Iranian authorities report at least 4 people killed and over 500 injured, many from flying glass and the sheer force of the shockwave. Videos on state media show a towering column of smoke rising from the dockyard, cars charred, and debris everywhere. Firefighters are struggling to get to the scene because of toxic fumes and secondary explosions. This is no small fire. This is a disaster of epic proportions. So what do we know? Iranian officials say the explosion came from containers at the port, specifically a depot storing hazardous chemical materials. By evening, they're pointing to improperly stored chemicals as the likely cause, suggesting an accidental detonation. But here's the thing, they're not saying exactly what those chemicals were, and that lack of clarity is fueling all kinds of speculation. The local governor has halted port operations, evacuated the area, and urged calm, but the scale of this blast, hundreds injured, buildings down, has everyone on edge. Now, let's zoom in on why this port and this moment are so significant. Shahid Rajaee isn't just any port. It's a key hub for strategic shipments, including materials for Iran's missile program. Just weeks before the explosion in February 2025, a cargo ship called the Golbon docked here with 1,000 tons of sodium perchlorate, a chemical used to make solid fuel for ballistic missiles. Ship tracking data and Western intelligence confirm it came from China's Taikang port. Another ship, the Jiren, was also set to deliver more of this stuff. Together, these shipments could have produced enough fuel for hundreds of missile motors, a major boost for Iran's missile arsenal, which took a hit from Israeli airstrikes in October 2024 that wrecked key fuel facilities. Here's where it gets interesting. The explosion happened in the exact area where dangerous goods, like chemicals, are stored. Sodium perchlorate is a strong oxidizer. Mishandle it and it can ignite or explode, producing intense fires and toxic smoke, just like what witnesses described. Some analysts, including Voices on Independent Persian, are openly wondering if that Chinese missile fuel shipment itself blew up. A former Iranian official even suggested that an oxidizer like this, stored improperly in 40-degree heat, could have sparked a small fire that escalated into a catastrophic blast. The timing is hard to ignore. A huge delivery of missile propellant arrives, and then, boom, a massive explosion in the storage area. But hold on, Iran hasn't confirmed the sodium perchlorate was involved. They're sticking to chemical materials ignited in a warehouse. Still, if this was the missile fuel, this explosion, accidental or not, could have wiped out a huge chunk of Iran's missile-making capacity. Western analysts are calling it a remarkable setback, whether by chance or design. Some Iranian media are downplaying it, claiming it was just a private oil tank, but there's little evidence for that. Now, let's address the rumors. In the chaos, some social media posts and Telegram channels speculated about a second explosion at another Iranian port, but there's no solid evidence of that. What likely happened is that people mistook the multiple secondary blasts at Shahid Rajaee, containers catching fire one after another, for separate incidents. Iran has plenty of ports like Chabahar or Bushehr, but no credible reports confirm any other explosions on April 26th. It was all about Bandar Abbas, where the fire and blasts kept going for hours. So the big question, accident or sabotage? This is where things get murky, and it's why this story is so gripping. Let's look at both sides. On the accident side, Iranian officials are leaning hard into this explanation. They say the blast started in a storage site with dangerous goods, maybe due to poor safety protocols. Iran's scorching heat, aging infrastructure, and sanctions limiting equipment upgrades have caused industrial mishaps before. Think warehouse fires or pipeline explosions. Witnesses reported a small fire before the big blast, which could have spread if volatile chemicals like perchlorates were poorly stored. The toxic fumes that kept rescuers at bay also point to a chemical fire. Plus, no group has claimed responsibility, and Iran hasn't pointed fingers at foreign actors, which they usually do if sabotage is obvious. All this suggests it could have been a tragic mistake. But then there's the sabotage theory, and it's got some serious weight. Iran's been in a shadow war with adversaries like Israel for years, with its nuclear and missile programs repeatedly targeted. This explosion fits the pattern perfectly. First, the timing and location are almost too convenient, right after a critical missile fuel shipment arrives. Second, some eyewitnesses, cited by Iran International, claim they saw a projectile like a missile or drone hit the port before the blast. That's unverified, but if true, it screams deliberate attack. Third, who benefits? Israel, which has vowed to stop Iran's missile program, would love to see 1,000 tons of propellant go up in smoke. It'd delay Iran's missile production for months. Israel's Mossad has pulled off similar stunts before. Think the 2020 Bush Airport fire that torched 7 ships, or the 2021 Natanz explosion that wrecked centrifuges. And just a day before this blast, U.S.-Iran nuclear talks were happening in Oman. A dramatic incident like this could be a warning shot from those opposing any deal. Here's the kicker. Israel's been running a covert campaign against Iran's nuclear and missile programs for over a decade. Let's run through some highlights. In 2010, the Stuxnet worm, likely cooked up by Israel and the U.S., snuck into Iran's Natanz facility and wrecked 1,000 centrifuges without a single bomb. In 2010-2012, Mossad was linked to assassinations of 4 Iranian nuclear scientists, slowing research by taking out key mines. In 2011, a huge explosion at an IRGC missile base killed 17, including the program's top architect. Officially an accident, but widely suspected to be sabotage. Fast forward to 2020, a string of blasts hit Iran's missile and nuclear sites, including a major one at Natanz that set back enrichment by years. In 2022, a drone strike at Parchin killed an engineer. And in October 2024, Israel openly bombed Iranian missile sites, wrecking fuel production. This is a pattern. Cyber attacks, killings, explosions, airstrikes, all aimed at keeping Iran's programs in check. If the Bandar Abbas blast was sabotage, it'd be straight out of this playbook. Blow up Iran's own stockpile on its soil. But Iran's silence on blaming Israel is notable. They usually shout Zionist plot from the rooftops. Maybe they see it as an accident, or maybe they're avoiding admitting another security failure. The truth might be a mix, sabotage exploiting sloppy storage, like a planted explosive triggering a poorly managed stockpile. Either way, the impact is huge. If sabotage, it shows Iran's supply chains are vulnerable. If an accident, it exposes dangerous negligence in handling explosive materials. For Iran, it's a blow to their missile ambitions, especially after those Chinese shipments were meant to rebuild what Israel destroyed last year. For Israel and its allies, it's a win, delaying Iran's missile buildup, though Iran's likely already scrambling to replace the lost chemicals. In the bigger picture, this explosion is a snapshot of a high-stakes shadow war. Iran's pushing for advanced missiles and maybe a nuclear weapon. Israel's doing everything, cyber, assassinations, bombs, to slow them down. Each hit buys time but risks escalation. Iran stayed quiet for now, but if they find proof of sabotage, things could heat up fast.